Is weakness really strength? Do all leaders actually struggle? Is there something that can always make you strong even when you are weak? We live in a culture that worships the image of the unshakable leader, the one who has it all figured out, the one who never struggles, the one who projects confidence 24/7. So here's what I'm wondering. What if the strongest thing you can do as a leader isn't to hide your struggles, but to strategically share them? And what if there's a way to do it without losing authority or respect? If you're new here, my name is Jared, and I'm a high school teacher turned leadership coach. For years, I led with a mask on. I thought vulnerability was a liability, that if my team saw me struggle, they'd lose confidence in me. Today, I'm going to share 5 practical shifts that let me use vulnerability as one of my leadership superpowers. So with all that said, let's dive in to help you transform. The first shift is to set clear boundaries before you share. In her book, Dare to Lead, author Brené Brown says, vulnerability minus boundaries is not vulnerability. She continues in a different book called Daring Greatly, quote, vulnerability requires boundaries and trust. Essentially what happens is most leaders think that being vulnerable means sharing everything. So what'll happen is they confuse openness for vulnerability. So they will either overshare and then eventually lose respect, or they will hold back and stay isolated. There's basically 2 questions to answer when you're trying to figure out what are my boundaries. Question 1 is, what's my intention? And question 2 is, who has earned the right to hear what I'm about to share? Normalizing these questions and this framework is really helpful. Your team will eventually see strength and not weakness. They're going to see wisdom in literally sharing, but not oversharing. With time, trust is actually going to build up because they know that you and one another are being intentional about what you share and why you share it. The second shift is to remember your purpose. Real vulnerability is different than doing it in such a way that feels performative and is fake. When a leader is able to share here, I don't know the answer here, that's a strategic and important decision to make. It's saying, I'm feeling uncertain about this direction, even though the stakes are high. And what this does is it creates a level of connection for your entire team to normalize the fact that we don't have all the answers. That's okay, and we will keep moving forward. So functionally speaking, when you stay grounded to your purpose in sharing, and even to the very purpose of the project or the purpose of the meeting, everything gets filtered through the lens. Am I seeking validation, or am I seeking to advance clarity on the project, which includes my own internal thoughts, struggles, and joys that I'm having around this? When you share to connect instead of being purposeless, your team leans in. They see you as a human, not perfect, and that gives them permission to be real too. Connection deepens, trust compounds, and eventually the entire team works better together, creating more high-performing teams. Before we get into our next 2 shifts, I need to pause for a second because I care about you actually using this and not just hearing it. So I created a brand new resource specifically for this video. The bottom line is that it includes all of these shifts we're talking about in this video, and it gives you specific habits you can start using this week for yourself and for your team. Please download it now using the link in the description below, or scan it with the QR code that I have on the screen. The third shift is to practice small, safe risks often. Author Brené Brown says in Dare to Lead, the more you practice rumbling with vulnerability, the better and faster you get at it. There's no surprise there. Practice makes progress and gets you better at something. So you need to start to practice vulnerability. But the practice doesn't happen in a massive, grandiose way. It happens in small, little moments that allows you to build up your comfort and tolerance with vulnerability. Because at the end of the day, vulnerability is not going to go well if you are vulnerable in a situation that has too high of stakes. You can't jump straight into the deep end without learning how to swim. In the same way, you can't jump into practicing vulnerability without actually learning how to do it in the small situations. I think what this looks like practically is just admitting that you need help, requesting feedback from your team. Doing that in and of itself is going to normalize the fact that it's okay to reach out and ask for help. So vulnerability will eventually become part of the culture, not a singular event. And over time, this is going to build trust. You're going to get better at it. You're going to get faster at it. Your team is going to see you and eventually themselves model this consistently. And before you know it, you're going to have created a culture of people that don't necessarily hide their struggles. They bring them to the table because they know they feel safe and they are able to get to the work and remove all of the obstacles that are blocking them. The fourth shift is to practice curiosity, not criticism. Author Brené Brown says in Dare to Lead, curiosity is an act of vulnerability and courage. She goes on at a later point to say, curiosity is the key to rumbling with vulnerability. For me, this is one of the hardest things I had to learn. And it's one of the biggest mistakes I used to make and still make as a leader. I lead with conclusions rather than questions. Someone would bring a problem to me and I'd immediately jump to the solution without formally understanding it. I thought that decisiveness was strength. But what I was really doing was shutting down exploration, killing curiosity, and creating a culture where people stop bringing me their real challenges. Here's what's scary about this when you do this. When you lead with criticism instead of curiosity, you don't get the whole story. Your team is eventually going to stop exploring or thinking or questioning. They're just going to wait for you to tell them what to do. Overall, that is going to make you the bottleneck. So in the moment, you feel like you're being efficient, but ultimately, you're making things worse because they're operating on incomplete information and they're going to you to solve the issue. So we need to be curious. It's okay to admit that you don't have all the answers. And even if you do have the answers, still practice curiosity. Your team is going to see you as a leader who's confident enough to ask questions, not just give answers. And that's the kind of leader people actually want to follow. Shift number 5 is to stay grounded in your core values. Understand that vulnerability isn't just about being open, it's about being grounded. A leader has to anchor themselves before they share. Not just anchoring themselves in the boundaries we mentioned in shift 1, but literally in understanding their own values. What am I okay with? What am I not okay with? So really practically, all this means is before you share, ground yourself in your core values. If you don't have a few of your values written down with you physically in your pocket, do that. And then read them before you go. Literally say them out loud to yourself before you go into a conversation. It's a super simple anchor, but it is going to free you up to be more vulnerable and to stay grounded. When you do all of these shifts together over time, vulnerability becomes a strength and not a hidden weakness that we just have to occasionally do. Hopefully all of this has been inspiring for you to start using vulnerability as a leadership tool rather than hiding from it. But here's the thing, ideas are easy to hear, but hard to implement. That's why I made a brand new resource that I mentioned earlier, and I built it specifically with you in mind so you can do something practical with all of these ideas right away. Feel free to download it now using the link in the description below or scan it with the QR code that I have on the screen. Be sure to get subscribed to see more type of this content. And if this resonated with you, I think you're gonna like this video right over here where I talk about why leaders who put family first build strong teams. I'll see you guys right over there in that video.